Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday morning. It's on. It says it's on. By the end of June, I'll have this down. Welcome to the Tuesday meeting of the Rotary Club. I know by now you put your phones on silent, and if you'll notice, there are strategically placed trash cans around the room so you can help us clear the table. And now I would like to invite up my quartet to join me in leading you all in a new song today. Now you all probably know the words to Side by Side. And if not, they're going to be on the screen. And there they are. Are we ready? Well, it is kind of far away back there. Okay, here. All right, a one and a two and a... Oh, we ain't got a bit of money. Maybe we're ragged and funny, but we'll travel along, singing a song, side by side. We don't know what's come tomorrow. Maybe it's trouble and sorrow. We'll travel the road, share our load, side by side. Day! Pledge, sir, please. You ready?
It was so awesome to share a stage with Bobby Slade, and that was awesome. Karaoke superstar of Gainesville. Let's now do the Pledge of Allegiance. Are you ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now on Zoom, our dear Ernie Hall. Or not.
Ernie, can we hear you, please? Unmute your phone. All right, we're gonna go Pete on our backup, please.
Thank you, Pete. Out of the bullpen, Pete Enwall.
Hey, all right. Will you pray with me? Lord, thank you for this food. Thank you for the blessing, this Rotary Club with all of the blessings that you've showered on us. We ask that we enjoy this food to the nourishment of our bodies, and we enjoy this fellowship to the nourishment of our souls. In Christ's name we pray, amen.
Rotarians with guests, please remain standing.
Are you standing with a guest?
Oh.
Are you standing with a guest?
No.
No?
Yeah.
Tom has somebody he wants to introduce. No. I was telling Tom I have somebody I want to introduce. That's a new assistant of mine, Alexa Hyman. Glad to have her with me today because she's driving and I'm not.
Hi, Rotarians. I'm Richard Allen, and it's my honor today to introduce Lillian Baker. She actually reached out to us because she has a long affiliation with Interact in high school, many officer positions at Interact, and then attended RILA after that. And she is now project manager working with General Motors, finance project manager with General Motors, and interested in membership.
Hi, I'm Wilbur Holloway, and you're not. This is Noah Hasty. You may remember him. He was on the state champion GHS 2009 basketball team. He was also the CEO of Gainesville Health and Fitness, and he is now the CEO of the Mills Group, a fabulous progressive real estate firm here in Gainesville.
Hey, Ryan Thompson here. With me is a guest of Brendan shortly, Alex Gibson. He's in the export business and join us today. Please welcome him.
Fellow Rotarians, I'm John Thomas, and it's my pleasure to introduce David Motha with Arcasis. David's dad is a member of the San Carlos Club in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and reached out and got us all connected, so very happy to have him here today.
Welcome to all of our visitors.
Now that you're nicely sat down there, Mr. President, it is your turn. I had no announcements. Anybody got an announcement? We can have an ad hoc, serendipitous announcement? Nope, none. You're on.
Thanks. Well, good afternoon, Rotarians. Thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to see everybody here. Thanks for joining via Zoom. I had the pleasure of being at the HCA ribbon cutting for the new hotel where they recognized Dr. Slayton there, a fellow Rotarian. Big round of applause. Just a quick announcement. We do have the district conference coming up, so you'll be receiving an email about that. And just moving forward, I'd like to announce our speaker, Michelle Lieberman, Alachua County Manager. In 2018, Michelle stepped away from 2 decades of practicing law in general and local government to accept the position of county manager. She served as president of the Florida Association of County Managers and is currently the president-elect of Women of NACO. Thank you.
Clearly, I need to bring the microphone down. Okay. So, little known fact at the county, we have the Michelle step, so that when I'm behind a podium, when we do like a ribbon cutting and stuff, sometimes they have to put the Michelle step so that you can actually see me on camera. So, okay. So I'm here, oh, there we go. I'm here to talk to you about such a fun subject today, your property taxes. And I understand I have about 15 minutes to do this, so I'm going to zip through here and then and leave some time for questions. So why am I doing this presentation and why now? Well, first of all, I wanted to provide an educational overview on how property taxes work in Alachua County and why they matter. Some of you may know some of this information and some of this may be new to you, but now because property taxes are a big subject in the state of Florida, we have potentially tax ballots coming on in the next election on property taxes, and used to be government could educate the public on ballot measures and referendums. Well, that law changed a few years ago, and the legislature has said, once something comes on the ballot, we can no longer even educate. We can only provide you information once something goes on the ballot if you ask. I can no longer stand up here and do this once something comes on the ballot. So I am talking to everybody as well as other members of our staff that I can until that time, because once that time comes, then I have to rely on those we have educated to date to educate others. So let's talk taxes. So elimination of property taxes, that sounds really, really great. Everybody hates paying property taxes. But the problem with that is there is no replacement source that the legislature is talking about. So what does that mean for you and Alachua County? Bring this forward. Yay, okay. So Alachua County currently has an aggregate millage of just over 9 mills, which is 51st out of 67 counties for general fund millage. And our general millage itself is just over 7.6, which makes us 41st out of 67. So what's the difference between general fund millage and aggregate millage? Aggregate millage includes the law enforcement MSTU, which is a separate millage rate, which only goes to the sheriff. It's done in the aggregate, even though that's over 3 mills, because not everybody in the county pays that millage. Only in the unincorporated area and the municipalities that have adopted the law enforcement millage rate. Comparison, Leon County is 50th. There are 16 counties that have higher aggregate millage than we do. Okay. Property taxes per capita. So Alachua County averages $714 per person, whereas the state average is $942 per person. So why does, everybody says, well, my tax bill keeps going up. Why, the county must be increasing my taxes. 2 factors go into that. One, we're not the only thing on your tax bill. So if anybody's paid attention to your tax bill, you have lots of other taxing entities. So in this county, your library district is 100% independent taxing district. Their tax is on your bill, their millage. The Children's Trust, which is a newer organization, they are in an independent taxing district. Their millage is on your tax bill. The state's water management district is completely funded by property tax in each region. Their millage is on your tax bill. The other thing that affects you, and so whether they increase or decrease affects your total tax bill. The other thing is your property value. So if property values were to remain static and everybody's millage rate was to remain static, then your property tax bill would remain static. But that doesn't happen. And as we know, values have increased considerably, but there is the 3% cap on homestead for homesteaded properties. So this is the impact of assessed value versus taxable value. So there's a difference. So the assessed value is what the property appraiser says your home is worth. The taxable value is what we can actually put a millage rate on. So for example, if you have a $50,000 homestead exemption, that is in your value, but it's not taxable, so we aren't able to tax that. What's important about taxable versus assessed value, government entities are not in that assessed value. So in Alachua County, only 67.33% of the assessed value of our properties is actually taxable by any of the taxing entities. The average is well above that in most counties. So around 80-ish%. So why is that? Well, we have a lot of people go, well, it's all the conservation land the county buys. Actually, that's a very small fraction because it doesn't have a lot of value associated with it. The University of Florida is a big factor. But when I say that, I like to tell people you have to look at the other side of that. They don't pay taxes, property taxes, but the benefit they provide cannot be overlooked. 50,000 plus students coming to this county make up part of our population. They pay sales tax, they pay gas tax, they support our economy to an extensive amount, so you can't discount that. Medical tourism, right? University of Florida Health brings in a lot of people to this community. So there's a lot of things you can't discount. So we balance out in other ways. And again, this talks about the taxable value versus assessed value. So taxable value grew from $21.6 billion to $35.3 billion from fiscal year 20 to 26, but total taxes assessed grew from 149 million to 227 million, so 8.6%. So there's this just talks about the growth year over year. Some of this stuff is a little dry, so I'm going to go quickly through it. So ad valorem, this is just what your taxes look like if it had stayed steady at 250,000. The county has lowered the millage rate every year for the last 9 years, and I will be recommending another millage reduction. But yes, your tax bill does go up because your values go up, and other entities may not be reducing their millage rate. So we have been reducing our millage rate. This is the one that I think is really important. So how many people here have heard of our state Doge, right? Doge, they've come, they've spoken, the CFO, and that Alachua County has spent $84 million in wasteful spending. It's a static number. What they're doing is they're taking, here was the budget in this year, and here's the budget in this year. The difference is X amount of dollars. There was this many additions to population, and there was a consumer price index on inflation of about 7% during that time period. The consumer price index does not represent what government pays. There's something else called the municipal cost index, which is a bigger indicator of what we actually pay. So this is just some examples with real world numbers. So if you look, in 2021, our waste hauling was $11 a ton. Today it's over 15. Construction, that's a big one. Construction, we actually paid for our building we built in 2021, $421 a square foot. Today, our buildings are costing us at least $680 a square foot. Station 33, which is over there off of 441, where the farmer's market was, cost about $2.5 million to build. When we first built it, that same station today is costing us over $7 million for that same size. A fire truck, which we paid just over $500,000 for in 2022. The trucks we order today are almost $1 million. That is a 60-some% increase, 64.8%. And the important one that everybody likes to talk about is roads. Roads cost us about $239,500 per lane mile in 2021. Today, we're paying almost $500,000 per lane mile for that same material and that same construction. And this just shows the budget a budget context, population increase, et cetera. And then this is what goes in the general fund. So our general fund is just over $300 million. That is not all property tax. Property tax is about $220 million of that. So how much is the county's budget? I like to tell people $1 billion isn't $1 billion. Our budget is about almost $1 billion this year, but only $220 million that, about 20% is your actual property tax. So what's the rest of that? The rest of that is reserves or emergencies. It's fund balance. Fund balance is what we have to have in our bank account. So if all else fails and we get zero money because there's catastrophic event happens, we can pay to run government for at least up to 2 months without having a blip. So there's that money. There is year-over-year projects. So when you're talking about here was the amount on your budget in year 1 and here it is in year 6, it doesn't account for the fact that maybe we have increased our reserves or ensured that we have more money in fund balance. Or it is project A that was started in this year, it wasn't finished, so we had to roll over the money to make sure we could pay the bill in the next year. That was included in some of the numbers that were put out in that report. And so this is what goes into the bill. So this is kind of how your funding of services breaks down. But this is another important slide. So these are things that people don't know that we have to pay. So we are obligated with your tax money out of the general fund to pay for Alachua County Court Administration, the state attorney, public defender, guardian ad litem. So our court facilities cost is over $4 million of that money. Those are state employees in in buildings that the county has to fund. We have to pay for all the infrastructure, the communications, internet, phone, maintenance, upkeep of all of those. State required services. We pay for juvenile detention. For the Department of Juvenile Justice, the state agency with state employees, every county in the state of Florida pays 1/67th of their annual budget. Regardless of how many folks or where the facilities are located, we're simply handed a bill and we're told to pay that. The other thing is, how many people knew that we pay the county's Medicaid cost? So 4.7 million we are obligated to pay for Medicaid. And that bill is handed to us as a pass-through from the state, and we have to pay that out of the general fund tax money. We also pay for the medical examiner and for the health department, which again are state employees. We have to pay for the building. We manage their vehicles. We have to pay for the maintenance and upkeep of their building as well. So these are just some of the what we call unfunded mandates of things that we are obligated to pay for that a lot of people don't understand that come out of our budget. In addition to that, there are 5 elected constitutional officers that come out of our property taxes as well. So you have the sheriff, the property appraiser, the tax collector, the supervisor of elections, and a portion of the clerk of court. All come out of the county's budget. They also all come out of your general fund. Because, so why is only a portion of that your property tax? And why can't we use that? Why do we have to have so much money in the budget? A lot of that money is grant money. It's debt. It's fees for services. So we can't use that money to support the supervisor of elections or the property appraiser's office. It has to come out of the general fund. You get a loan, a mortgage to buy your house, you can't take the money for buying the house and instead of giving it to the seller, use it to buy your groceries. We can't take money that we've gotten for a grant for a program and pave your road. Parks is a big one that comes out of the general fund. Most of that is general funded. We have a sales tax. We use that to supplement. We cannot use that sales tax to do other things with. So I'm going to skip here. Here's, so what we're looking at, this is just the financial impact if $150,000 homestead exemption. Currently it's 50. So simply doing $150,000 homestead exemption, county ad valorem revenue drops to $187 million from over $200 million. So a lot of the tax proposals talk about holding harmless public safety. So if we take out all those public safety costs, we begin with 21 million of property tax left to fund all the core county services that are remaining. An example of what would happen if all property taxes were eliminated, if you took out 100% of property tax without a replacement source and you were to hold public safety harmless, the county would be starting at negative $24 million to fund all of your 5 constitutional officers. Well, the sheriff would be held harmless. So the other 4 constitutional officers, we would already be at a negative $24 million deficit, and that does not include the other county services that come out of the general fund, like parks, like administration. And the other part of that is, as I mentioned at the beginning of what's on your tax bill, there are lots of agencies that are 100% funded by property tax. So if property tax goes away, your library closes, all of them. We're not sure what the state would do with the water management districts. The Children's Trust would go away. So a lot of things that you have come to enjoy about your community would go away. And so we do have some resources. We've put out some materials. The QR code goes to an 8-chapter little information that we've put out. But, you know, I will say this. Here are some of the things that I have heard from the legislature. Because one of the things, you know, kind of watch the debate in committee in the state legislature. I have heard, we have to do this because the public needs a say. The public needs to be able to vote on whether they want property taxes or not. Well, the last time that I checked, the government that is closest to the people is the local government. You have a say every time you go to the election and vote for a county commissioner. You have a say. You have a say to those county commissioners. You have a say before your city commissioners on what their taxes are. So in the state of Florida, because of the way the population falls, approximately 8 counties could meet the threshold for a ballot initiative to make it pass, mainly in South Florida. So if you want them to decide what happens here, that's what could happen with a ballot measure. I've already talked about, why now, and the only other thing I would say before, happy to take questions if there are any, is, the other thing that I've heard is how many of you actually live in cities within a municipality? Okay, so the other thing that has been said at the state level is you understand that many of these cities will not be able to survive without ad valorem tax. And the state legislators have said, we understand that, and that just may have to happen. These cities may just have to go away. And which is disappointing, because I do think that cities, people who live in them, are proud of their municipalities. They're proud of where they live and their towns and their communities throughout the state. There's over 400 of them. And this also threatens them as well. So that is my educational speech for today. And I'm happy to answer any questions about taxes, about the county, things we do, county government. Now that I've made everybody's afternoon and everybody's like, hey.
Thank you, Michelle. I didn't expect your presentation to be the most terrifying of the year. I know what state we live in and who lives in it. What are we going to do?
Well, again, it's about educating the public on what it means, because what the state is saying is what we're telling you is scare tactics. Don't let them tell you that you're not going to have the same level of law enforcement or fighter. Don't let them tell. So we're just trying to say, I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to put the facts in front of you. Follow up on them. Look at them. Find out how a budget is done and educate yourselves, because this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Please let me sit, not stand, because of my knee. First off, thank you for having the courage to come and speak to us about this subject. You have 5 bosses and as well as people like us, so we appreciate you coming, and that was a great explanation that you gave us. A couple of years ago, I happened to do a comparison of budgets for a candidate, and I noticed that the amount of money available to spend pretty much doubled over a 4 or 5 year period because of the increase in property values. And I'm wondering if there's any policy in place to limit the spending growth over the course of several years because of the increase in property values.
So that's really a function of the governing body to make certain decisions to whether to go back and live within a certain budget level. But let me say that. So even when we reduce our millage rate, that can often be advertised as a tax increase, because the way that it works is if you have, we'll make round numbers because round numbers are easy for me. So if you have $1 million and that's your budget for this year, and next year we say, despite inflation, despite increase in needs, we're going to keep our budget at $1 million. We then take that and we have to go, what is the millage rate based on the increase in value that will only generate $1 million? Which usually is significant reduction, because with the property value increase. So that would be no taxable increase. Even if we reduce the millage rate, if that millage rate reduction due to property value increases still results in us getting $1,200,000, we have to say that's a property tax increase. But ultimately, the budget itself and the function of living within whatever that is for inflation and such is a policy decision by whoever is in office. We continue, and we'll be recommending, I will be recommending again this year to do a millage reduction. Again, we have done the rollback rate a couple times. The rollback rate is basically what I just said. If you have $1 million today, it'll be $1 million next year. That's getting harder and harder to do because inflation is considerable. Fuel alone to run our vehicles right now is extensive.
Michelle, we have a question from Zoom real quick. Dwight, excuse me. Jenny Van Hart wants to know, is the per capita tax number mentioned early on take the student population into account? Would that explain the $200 difference between Alachua County and state numbers?
So I don't run the math, but yes, students are included based on population. So our population is really bumping that 300,000 number around 298,000, but a very large part of that is students between Santa Fe College and UF, probably close to a fifth. And they do vote in our elections, and they are considered in the population.
Thank you, Michelle.
Great presentation, thank you. Could you just share with me, besides the universities and the government entities, what other entities are excluded from property taxes?
So UF, Santa Fe College, the VA, all the VA facilities, which are everywhere, so those are government. All of the state parks, the county, of course, all the county infrastructure is exempt. All the municipal, so we have nine cities. They do not pay taxes as well, so that's quite a bit of infrastructure. And that does include, it's not just, for example, the University of Florida proper, it would include also the satellite, UF Health, and their facilities as well.
My sister moved out of state, and she looked at six different states, and each of the different states had different taxation schemes. Like I was in Oregon, and I bought a surfboard, they had no sales tax. I'm sure you attend, there's a national county meeting. Are there counties or states where they do not have property taxes? And if they do, how do they make it up?
So I believe there's one or two, don't quote me on that. There's a lot of going in this direction, but there are several states that don't have sales tax, I know as well. But most states have an income tax, a state income tax. And so a lot of money comes from state income tax. That is one of the draws to the state of Florida. We do not have state income tax. And frankly, I do not foresee that we will ever have state income tax because that would have to go to the voters. And if any of you plan on voting to have your income tax, let me know, because I don't think we will. And sales tax, in order to make up the difference in what we would lose in property tax, would be extensive. Probably, we have a 7-cent discretionary surtax that the county, not unlike a lot of counties that has a discretionary surtax, the state level is 6% or 6 cents on the dollar. It would be easily 15 to 20 cents on the dollar to make that up. But the kicker in that is then each community, each county, and each city would be beholden to the state to give them the money to operate and whatever the state decides. So for those of you who don't know how sales tax works, so the 6% that is the state's share of sales tax, it all goes to the Department of Revenue, and every county and every municipality gets a share of that sales tax based on some formula that's out there that the state, it's called state revenue sharing. And by the way, anytime the state gets mad at you, they say, we're going to cut off your revenue sharing if you don't do X, Y, Z. So that's the state's revenue sharing. The discretionary tax, which is the penny, that is 100% ours, and it's divvied up by either under statute by either the population or by the agreement that we set. The kicker to that is that and the discretionary tax, that doesn't, or the state revenue share is every time you see we're adding a new sales tax holiday, or they just eliminated the commercial rent tax. That commercial rent tax, because that 1 penny of Wild Spaces money is 100% ours, we're losing overall in the county, including the municipalities, when you know, whatever that division is, but the county as a whole, that is a $3 million per year loss in sales tax that comes off of that budget as well for cities and counties total. So even that affects us.
Excuse me, I'm not near as smart as Wilbur here. And I'm also left-handed and Polish. So you're telling me that the state legislature is going to vote to drop property taxes statewide? That's going to a vote, or they're talking about it?
So they're talking about it. There are certain things that have to go on a ballot. Elimination of property taxes would have to go on a ballot because property taxes are in the state constitution. What they do have the right to do without coming to the voters is institute a higher level of homestead exemption. The governor has said he wants it on the ballot. The difference is if it's in legislation, then any legislature can come along later and change it, which is what they don't want. They want to make it very difficult to ever go back and change it. If it's on a ballot and placed into the state constitution, it makes it very hard because it has to go back to the voters of Florida in order to reverse it if there's any damage done there. So, but we don't know what's going to happen right now. The House has put about 5 proposals out there. The Senate has not put their proposal out. The governor has said something will be on the ballot. For anybody who follows politics, the House isn't talking to the Senate's not talking to the House, the governor's not talking to the House. We still don't have a state budget. The one thing constitutionally that our legislature is obligated to do is adopt a state budget before the end of June. The past 2 years, they haven't done that. They have literally been passing it in the 11th hour, which, by the way, makes it difficult for us to budget. It makes it difficult to know what we have to spend coming from the state, but we're in that posture again. Right now, they're saying they're going to talk about the budget in May. There's a cooling off period before they can vote on a budget to go to the governor. That cooling off period will probably be over Memorial Weekend and that holiday, where they will come back and decide what goes to the governor, and then the governor has a period of time to go through and veto and make decisions there. Last I heard, the proposed budgets were over $1 billion apart between the House and Senate. So, and they can adopt legislation as part of their appropriations. So we don't know what's going to happen.
Thank you for being here. A couple of things. Gas tax was approved a number of years ago. I've lived in the county a long time, and was going to help repave the roads, and we've had infrastructure issues, and now all of a sudden we're seeing Wild Spaces money being spent for road repaving. And so I'm just curious as to how all that plays out. And, you know, we always were told that, you know, we're some of the highest gas taxes in the state, you know, or right here in Alachua County and that kind of thing. So I just wonder if you might comment on that.
Yeah, so Department of Revenue has a lot of information available for you to look at, and so I would encourage you to kind of look through. It has the different taxable values throughout the state. It also gives a chart of gas tax and how many counties have adopted that highest level of gas tax, which we have, the total of 11 cents. Many counties have. The function of the cost between counties really is a function of where you're located and how much the original fuel costs when you add that tax on top of it. Because, like I said, many counties have that full amount. The problem with gas tax is it has not been indexed for inflation in decades. So what do we have today? We have more fuel-efficient cars. We have electric cars, hybrids. They all take from the gas that is being purchased. And the gas tax itself has not been indexed for inflation, so it has remained static for 20, 30 years. So we have to supplement our road construction, our road maintenance through general fund taxes and through wild spaces, through grants, or we simply couldn't fund it.
Question from Marty Meisner on Zoom real quick here. He wants to know how much of statewide property taxes are homestead property taxes versus commercial property taxes.
I do not have that figure, but I can find that out and make sure that you can let everybody know what that is, what the difference is, particularly statewide.
Thank you, Michelle.
I have a question about the University of Florida's tax exemption land. I wonder how it is approved through the state that a commercial entity is able to be on untaxed state land, and for example, the Hotel Elio does not have any property taxes. The Hilton, again, does not. So how are they able to get away with that, is my question.
That is a very complex legal issue and legal argument. It has to do with who owns it and where that control over the property lies. But essentially, that's simply the way our system works, the way the laws are now. And like I said, I like to, preface that with, we have a huge offset of benefit from the University of Florida that we can't discount, both indirect and direct. I mean, I can tell you what one football game brings the county in actual cash dollars for one day in sales tax and property tax, and that's just us. When you look at the fraction of that that is actually direct spending into our economy, to the hoteliers, try to find a hotel room on home game day, right? To our hoteliers and to the businesses that operate here, it's huge, and it can't be discounted.
Hi, I just had a quick question. You mentioned that the city sets a budget, then they look at the total assessed value and they decide the millage rate from there. I know a lot is in flux right now. You don't know how this proposal will go through, but if it is homestead exemption, surely wouldn't the burden just shift to landlords or commercial properties, and then those who are homesteading their properties would be relatively unaffected and the budget would just go forward from there?
Yes, that is a correct statement, because if the budget is this, and I need this to at least pay for the basics, right, that we talked about, and I can't get it from homestead, where do I get it? I have to get it somewhere to make the total budget. Even if I cut services, I still have to get it from somewhere to get the total budget. That affects commercial property, it affects rent, because we all know that's a pass-through from the landlord, it affects businesses. But I will tell you, that alone will hit municipalities very hard. Municipalities, maybe like the city of Gainesville, that's much larger, that has a lot of commercial properties, could withstand that. But city of Newberry, they are probably 90% homestead and residential. I can tell you, the town of La Crosse with 300 people, I don't think they have any business anymore. They had one gas station, I think it closed. So you will eliminate, that alone could close the doors of many municipalities.
I was wondering, do you have any feel for what kind of traction this movement has, and what the pulse is out there for the population?
I think more and more of the public, because having these conversations in our communities is starting to understand the true impact, which I hope. But it sounds sexy, right? I mean, let's not pay property taxes. That's rent, right? I don't want to pay rent on a house I own. Well, I don't want to pay for my, water bill or my internet bill either. But I don't consider that rent on my home. I consider that a service, and a lot of what we do is services. So hopefully people doing this across the state are having some impact, but it is gaining traction, and it's not just gaining traction here. If anybody follows others, the Texas governor has now jumped on board, and he is pushing an elimination of property tax in the state of Texas. So, and there's a couple other states that are looking at the same thing. So it is gaining traction. They've even talked about a national level of saying no property tax. So we'll see.
You've given us some rankings in the state where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Of our budget, where do we rank in the state with percentage of our budget going to administrative costs and percentage of the budget going to infrastructure? Where do we rank in the state?
That I would have to also look up for you. So hopefully somebody's keeping notes of what I'm going to look up and provide, because I will not remember when I walk out the door. So I'm being given the hook, but let me just say that please participate in government. You know, I can sit here and talk, but without your participation, we can't make the decisions. The board can't make the decisions. So be on an advisory board, come to a board meeting, and come participate.
Michelle, thank you so much for taking time away from the commission meeting, and as a token of our appreciation, we're going to make a donation in your name to the Rotary Foundation.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to set it down.
So next week's program is going to be the Middle School Science Fair. It's a lot of fun, so please bring a guest. The Rotary Reading Safari is on vacation this week, so we'll have to wait till next week for the winner. And stand up and say it with me. That we'll conclude with the four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And we are adjourned.